Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp with a Limp, and I'm here with another video for you. This one is about Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the board game. So I don't even have to say it. If you're into gaming, you know this is something to be excited for. Obviously, it's already blown the hell out of its pledge goal. It's already up to almost 10,000 backers. Still 12 days to go. Now, this is being put in the category of Kickstarters worth checking out. But, key but here, they have done something that I am incredibly disappointed that they made this decision, because it's really kind of forcing people's hands. And I went back and forth and I looked at it and I was checking to make sure I'm 100% right. And as far as I know, I am right when I'm saying what I'm going to say about this game. Now, I'm not saying the game's bad, but they've made a decision that's forced people into a choice between a lesser experience and a fuller experience. And now what I mean by that is when it comes to a Kickstarter, when it comes to a game, I'm all about, having all that extra content. That's fine. Have all the different factions, have everything you add, stretch goals, all the cool stuff. I'm good with it as long as it's icing on the already established cake. Okay, so the core pledge needs to be the full experience. Okay, full experience. And then everything else on top of that just needs to be layers that we're adding on top of it. Not new experiences. Now, some people might disagree with me on that, but I think you should always get the totality of the game, especially when it's being first released. Now, if this is a second edition, maybe we could look at it differently. But if this is the first time it's being released and it's being kickstarted and all this stuff, then the totality of the experience really needs to be in that core box, and everything that you're adding onto it as expansions or stretch goals needs to add to the core experience, not be an improvement upon or new experience. So we're not going to watch the whole video. Definitely go watch it for yourself if you want to, but I want to show this one specific part, and then we'll go down into the components to get on to what I'm talking about.
Battle. Carefully position your forces on the battlefield, protect your ranged units, and use your hero to manipulate the battlefield. Master your faction, and go forth. Arathia awaits.
Okay, so that's the key part. The rest of the game, I am totally with everyone else. I'm very excited to see this get made. I'm very much looking forward to it. I know I'm one of thousands who are just thrilled to see this thing coming to light. I'm not surprised it's blown away Heroescape. Yeah, Heroescape didn't even get close to this amount of backers, but this game is better priced and is offering more stuff for what you're getting, but that's neither here nor there. Let's look at the pledges really quickly so we can touch on what I'm talking about. All right, so of course you've got your base pledge. I've thrown the dollar on so I can comment and stuff like that. And, depending on how Christmas goes, if I have extra money, then I'll end up back in the game, but I've got some stuff I got to get for the kids. So we'll see if this becomes a reality for me. But you have the basic pledge, which I was very excited to see that the base just entry-level pledge, $75. Okay, or 75 euros roughly. Anyway, you're getting a good value for your dollar there. Totally on board with that. Totally on board with that. I think that's a good price point for them, and they're going to get plenty of people. Now, you'll notice that they don't have too many backers. They've got 9,000 some backers. Only 252 have backed at this level. And I think it's because of the reasons that I'm going to address. So our next level, we've got the Azure pledge. And again, you can see 228 backers. And it's because of what I'm going to touch on. The majority of the people have backed right here at this Grail pledge. And it's because of the components that are included. Now, this has to do with the expansions that are available for this game and one key expansion. Now, something I've touched on in a different game that I covered, the Hellboy Kickstarter. I loved Hellboy. I thought it was a great game, but I rated it in two different ways because depending on what amount of Hellboy you got determined on how good of a game it was. Because due to their stretch goals and what you got during the Kickstarter, it changed it to a very different experience from what you would get from the retail pledge. The retail pledge, the base version of the game of Hellboy, it only had 6 missions in it, only had a couple of bosses, and only had one faction of enemies, and the missions were static. There was no replayability to the game. But the Kickstarter versions had that replayability, the ability to give different missions, different outcomes. So you weren't for sure positive exactly how everything was going to play out. Because yes, Hellboy was a fun experience as you were doing your investigation. But once you've done that investigation, you know what's going to happen. There's no reason to play through it again. You didn't get that unless you had certain components. So the core element of the game changed. The value for your dollar was massively different depending on the two different versions of the game you got. If you got the full version, it was absolutely worth your dollar. You got more bad guys, more of the bosses, and you got more factions. It wasn't fun just to fight just frog monsters. You wanted to fight a bunch of other stuff too, right? Yeah. That came into play with Hellboy. Here we've got a very similar experience. Now I'm not going to go through all the components of the game. By all means, check it out. The game looks good. Okay, I'm not hating on what they've done here. It looks like an excellent experience and one that I very, very much want to get to my table. So don't take me as hating the game. I'm not. I'm hating their business choice, and I think it was a deliberate one because it really does pigeonhole people into a very specific direction, as you can see where the backers are majorly going. The first 2 pledge levels don't even come close to equaling what's at the 3rd pledge level. And Kickstarters generally don't go like that. And so as we scroll on down through the rest of this, you can see the components, the hex maps as you move around, your commander heroes representing your army. They're picking up resources across the map, different zones, really cool stuff. Speaking of which, if you like this, check out the video game Heroes Hour. Won't get sidetracked on it, but I've been playing a little bit recently. Very fun game. Check it out. Anyway. Oh, and it's on sale on Green Man Gaming, so you can get it for like $10. But game looks good. You're going to build your forces just like you do in Might Magic Heroes. Upgrade your hero, go across, and then you'll get into the battles. And the battles is the key point that I want to go to. I really like the look of this. This is the upgrading your town, and they've got little tiles here that you're going to flick across as you upgrade it. So your town and your castle and your fortress is going to look cooler and cooler and cooler, and add more stuff for you to do, more recruitment options and things like that as you upgrade your fortress. Really cool idea. I like that. All this, great, perfect. Really, really cool stuff. Building your hero. When we get to here, this is where I'm like, okay, now we got a problem. So this is the battlefield that you get in the basic and the Azure versions of the game. Okay. So I think of this as like, what, 8-bit, 16-bit Might Magic stuff, heroes of Might Magic. 3 lanes, 5 spaces per lane? Yeah. So you can see you got the 3 lanes, 1, 2, and 3 there, and you're fighting over them however the battles are going to work in this game. And at the first couple of levels, you're able to either do that using your miniatures or the cards that represent the miniatures. That's fine. Those first 2 base levels can go in either direction. And part of me was wondering, well, why didn't they offer standees? Almost every game that I see now that comes out, they'll offer standees in lieu of miniatures. In case you don't want to spend that amount of money, you can get just standees instead of the minis. And I'm fine with that. And I think not offering standees might also be a deliberate decision to force people up to, again, that next level. Because this is, keep in mind, 3x5, all right? This battlefield 3x5. Now, when we scroll down, This is talking about the Azure Pledge, the difference, and you can see minis versus cards being used. I'm okay with that to the extent that I would still like to see the standees. I do understand it's a cost increase, but I don't think it's that severe of a cost increase that it couldn't be done. It's when we get down into the expansions that this becomes a issue. And I got to say, all this looks really good. I love Necropolis. I love skeletons and raising the dead and the zombies. It's always been my faction. So excited for that. But you can see for the Azure pledges, the only ones, Azure and up, are the ones that get the minis. Okay, cool. I'm fine with that. Shows our set of cards, tokens, the town boards. It says 3 town boards. I guess you get another one with one of those other expansions. The combat boards, which they could have gone a different direction. We're going to touch on that. Resource die, attack die, treasure die. Here's the problem. Here's where we run into the key issue. And this is what I equate to the Hellboy example I was talking about earlier, where the game dramatically shifts depending on which version you get. This Battlefield expansion changes the game. It doesn't add to. It's not an expansion of existing material. It creates new material for the game. And you can see it comes into it very key here with the Battlefield that is no longer a 3x5. It's now dramatically, it's about 6 times larger than the original Battlefield. There's so much more that can be done here. And we can see laid out here, if we compare the base Battlefield, 3x5 lanes. So count these hexes out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then up 3. This little area right there. That's the amount of distance that's in the core experience. Or you can get the expansion that has the advanced rules for a more full experience and gameplay. Has different types of terrain that can get added, obstacles, and these adventure cards, which change up other elements of gameplay and adds things like neutrals to the map, all right, as you're moving around. This is where my problem lies with it, is that the battle experience, which obviously is key to a hero's game like this, changes so dramatically. But this expansion isn't expensive. I think it does list it down. Is $20. All right, €20, $20 is whatever. So it's 20. The problem lies is that there are no standees. Okay, so you can't do it at the base pledge level. You cannot get the base pledge and the Battlefield to make that experience. You have to have the miniatures, which means you have to step up to at least the Azure pledge, which if we remember, it was 120. So if we add 120 to that, right? Add 120 to the 20, we're already up to 140, which is so close to the Grail pledge anyway, that you're dumb not to just go ahead and get the Grail pledge. Because you get the Azure pledge, the stretch goals for that, the Battlefield expansion I'm talking about, the added Fortress expansion, which adds cool stuff, but I don't put in the same category as the Battlefield, and another faction, okay? That's why you're seeing everyone back at this level, because there's no rational reason to back at that earlier level unless you can't possibly afford it otherwise. Because this is so much different from what's being offered in the core experience of the game. And that is something I truly do not like to see a game do. I'm kind of stuck on it because, yes, I want games to have new experiences added to them. I want developers to do new things and bring new life to a game. But this feels like they paywalled off a segment of game that you would like to have, and they specifically made it to where you have to pay the higher price to get it. Because $75, right, for the base, I would be okay with adding the 20 and going at roughly a base 100 and be done with it. but there's no standees. So I don't have anything to represent those figures on the map besides the cards, and they're not going to work on this battlefield. That's not going to work. So I have to have the miniatures. Now, if you're a big D&D player or something like that, and you've got other minis that could stand in, you could probably make it work. Most of us aren't going to have minis that are going to be close enough to be functional on something like this. So it does kind of stick us into it. If the core game came with standees instead of just the cards, I would be all right with it. I would think that would be a fair deal. I don't mind using the standees instead of the minis. It's one less thing I have to paint, saves a little trouble for me. But I think that they avoided offering those standees because they know that people are going to want this experience. Because tell me I'm wrong. Who is going to look at this and say, I would rather have that 3x5 battle instead of this larger battlefield where I can flank and get around behind or overwhelm them? You're not really going to have that experience, not really, maybe abstractly in the original Battlefield, but you can have it with this one. And again, the way the pricing structure is set out, by the time you add up together what you would need as a base just to get there, there's no reason for you not to pay the full amount and get the Grail pledge anyway. That's just sad. Look, I get it. I get companies exist to make money. They've got to make a profit. But I don't like paywalled content that they're going to know people are going to want. Like a solitaire expansion. I've seen Kickstarters do that before, where they tried to put the solo content, the solo AI, whatever it was, the deck of cards, the flow chart, whatever it was, towards the end of the stretch goals. And that alone caused a backlash. People were very upset about it. They wanted it included with the base game. And the publisher did end up doing the right thing, and they retracted and they moved the solitaire AI way farther up into the stretch goals so it would be met, because there was no guarantee of those later stretch goals. The earlier ones they were going to make. And again, this isn't me hating on the game. The game looks great. I'm hoping it succeeds out the ass. It looks like it's going to do very well. Already 10,000 pledges for it. I'm expecting it to do great things. I just don't like this very specific decision. I think it was done deliberately. I think the standees, no standees, and then separating out the battlefield like that. I don't even think the first battlefield should have been an option. Right? This experience, this right here, should have been just part of the core game, period. Just done. Whatever you had to do to make that work, and then build the rest of the pledges off of it. I mean, we see it worked for them. Plenty of people are backing at the Grail level and the collector pledge level. They're going either all in or almost all in on the game. And I don't blame them, because there's really no reason not to for what you're getting. Although I gotta say, Rampart people look cool too, but they're gonna be beat by the Necropolis, because that's my faction, and I gotta love my zombies and skeletons and everything. Gotta say, all looks great. Love this fortress too. Add some more map tiles, which who doesn't like? I love stacks. Huge stack of map tiles. You never know what's coming next. Love that. Friggin' awesome. Fortress units on there. So cool. I cannot wait to try this game out. I'm gonna have to find a way. I don't know. I have to beg the wife. Maybe she'll let me figure out something so I can go ahead and get it. I'm disappointed. I would have liked to have seen it done differently, to give people an option that didn't include walling off certain parts of the content. Because come on, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong in the comments that no one's going to use these map boards here. It's a waste of production. The only ones who are going to use those for the combat boards are going to be the people who had to, because they couldn't possibly afford anything higher. And after the year we've had, that's sad, because everyone deserves, who wants it, should be able to experience the full game, the most awesomeness that they can have. And that's sad. But let's do a GoFundMe or something. GoFundMe. Everyone who's down here at the the base pledge or the Azure pledge, just do a GoFundMe and have it to where we can bump them all up to the Grail pledge and just call it a damn day. All right, I'll stop griping and whining and all the other crap I'm doing. Heroes of Might and Magic, the board game 3, is on Kickstarter now. It's kicking ass. It's going to kick ass. Supposedly it's going to deliver a year from now. I don't know if I see that one happening, but cross our fingers. We can hope. It would be great. That would be a great Christmas present for next year. And oh God, look at these minis painted up. They're going to be beautiful on the board. The game's going to be phenomenal. Really just hoping for good things. I just wish they had done it differently, so people who already, type wouldn't have to make as hard of a decision. It would be okay to just get that core pledge and get that full experience versus not being able to do it and finding a way to stretch that dollar to get the whole game, since they segmented off the best part behind a paywall effectively. No. All right, that's going to be it for me. You guys take care. I'll catch you in the next one.